Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, can you hear me? Wonderful. Is that for me? Hare Krishna. It's difficult on Zoom. Hare Krishna, Dandvat. बस भगवान की दया है. आप लोग कैसे हैं? हाँ, सब प्रभु इच्छा. Hare Krishna. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mehyam Dadati Swapadantika. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shanyavadi Paschatya Deshatarini Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivashadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So Madan Kishore Prabhu, I had asked you if you want me to give the class in Hindi or English. तो आपने सजेस्ट किया था कि हम हिंदी में क्लास दें. So हिंदी में कंटिन्यू करना है या इंग्लिश में कंटिन्यू करें? Okay. Oh, all right. I did not have that information. So we'll continue in English, and yeah, I'll have to stop the. I'm sorry. I wouldn't mind doing it in either languages, since you have a few members of the audience who may not understand Hindi. So yeah, you feel like that English should be better? Okay, all right. So let me do that in English. You're welcome. The basic understanding of Krishna consciousness, or for that matter, spiritual life, is that existence in the present form is temporary, and there is definitely a principle of life that is beyond this physical and mental framework that we have, which we call as the body. So there is an active principle that is different from the body, and that active principle is referred to as the Atma, or translated as the soul. This active principle is what gives life to any form. Going further, philosophically, we also understand that the nature of the individual soul is that it is small. It is what we would call as fragmental. It is a fragment of something bigger. And students of philosophy understand this because they realize that to function in a world, the present world, there has to be a creator who has to be the big boss, the big one. And since the creator is the source of all, therefore the creator or Krishna or God is a source of us too. And hence we are fragmental portions or parts of the whole. So these two understandings are essential to always remember as long as we are in this material world. First of all, we are spirit soul, different from the body. And secondly, we are part and parcels of the Supreme Lord. Of these two principles, the principle of being part and parcel exists eternally. It will be existent now and in the hereafter too, means in the afterlife or after we give up this body. This principle does not change, that we are part and parcels of God. The reason I'm pointing out towards this principle is, or I'm stressing on this principle is, the reason is that the nature of part and parcel, the nature of a part and parcel or a small existence, the nature of a small existence is that one always looks out for a bigger idol in life. Typically, that idol should be, when I say idol, I mean someone big, someone that one can look up to. Somebody who inspires us. So we need that. So we look up to God and we look up to great personalities who have a deeper understanding of God and service towards God. And that is how in Vaishnava studies or in philosophical circles, especially where there is a devotional community, a devotee community, looking up to great personalities is very natural and practical too. When we look around to find great personalities amongst us, then the pool that we are looking at is very small. If we try to find somebody who's very great in our building or in our neighborhood, then we restrict ourselves to a very small subset of the entire existence. Hence the word acharyas or great souls, acharyas with a big A, I mean everything, all the letters in the word acharya are with caps on, capital letters. When you speak of great souls with a big G, big S, what we are speaking of is a very rare phenomenon that happens in multitudes of generations. That is what it means. These acharyas, they serve as guiding lights. They serve as real-time heroes for us, those of us who are thirsting after finding inspiration in our practices. And hence the acharyas are very much revered too. As I said, they are very few in number compared to the huge population that exists. So 1 in millions is practically what we are speaking of. The reason for this is that the potency of an acharya, the potency of a great soul, is so huge. The spiritual potency of a great soul is so big, so large, that that spiritual potency can affect the lives of hundreds upon thousands of people over various generations, over 10 to 20s or hundreds of generations. They need to stress on this fact that acharyas or great souls are a rare species, is so that we do not fall into the trap of illusion or delusion. We do not become delusional that one amongst us could be an acharya too. Just because it's like the animals of one forest or jungle, they claim that the king of that forest or jungle is the acharya. So acharya is accepted by different generations of devotees. Like our generation, the generation before us, the generation before that, and the generation after us. That is how acharyas become immortalized in those real-time hero stories, real-time inspirational stories. What is the significance of, or how does it relate to us in our present day times in 2020? We are towards the end of November 2020. Another Kartik month is almost over. So how does it relate to us? There's a beautiful verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam. This verse is quite popular. It is spoken by a young child who is hailed, who is looked upon as a very great personality. And he is the son of Hiranyakashipu, the great grandson of Brahma, of the name Sri Prahlad or Prahlad Maharaj. Actually, this is not his prayer, it is his advice. And within this advice that he offers, we understand the significance of being able to connect with such great personalities who happen to visit, our realm of existence, like once in a lifetime of the demigods, like once in thousands of years. Naishamatastavadurukramanghrim sprishatyanarthabakamo yadarthaha mahiyasam padarajobhishekam nishkinchanana pranita yavat. The translation of this verse is, unless they smear upon their bodies the dust of the lotus feet of a Vaishnava, completely freed from material contamination, persons very much inclined toward materialistic life cannot be attached to the lotus feet of the Lord, who is glorified for his uncommon activities. Only by becoming Krishna conscious and taking shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord in this way can one be freed from material contamination. So, by they, we are being addressed. This entire generation of spiritual practitioners are being addressed here. Typically, it means that for those of us who are trying to surrender our consciousness, who are trying to somehow or the other allow our consciousness to accept the shelter of the holy names, we're making this endeavor. So for us who are making this endeavor, being able to connect to such a great personality helps us become disinclined towards materialistic life, and especially inclined and attracted to become attached to the lotus feet of the Lord. There are many people who become attracted to the lotus feet of the Lord. I mean, when we go to take darshan, the form of the deities, the decoration that is done on the altar, when we see the deities, it's attractive. When we sing kirtan, right before this lecture, we were having such wonderful and really engrossing kirtan. It's attractive. So attraction is there. To be able to create an attachment to such attraction, that is an entire lifetime's journey. A journey of an entire lifetime is to be able to create an attachment to such sankirtans, to the lotus, to the form of the Lord, towards the descriptions of the Lord given in the scriptures. Until the time such attachment is not strongly developed, is not very much developed within our consciousness, there will be an on and off attraction, an on and off relationship or inclination towards the material world, towards materialistic life. There's no question of whether it would happen. Definitely it would happen. Because not having attachment towards Krishna gravitates one towards materialistic existence. So to be able to do that, one needs to find some connection to great personalities, either through their physical association or through the descriptions of the activities of great personalities. And we are fortunate that we have so many descriptions of great personalities, beginning with our own very own founder Acharya, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And we have at least more than 20 or 30 very well-known examples of such acharyas in the Gaudiya Vaishnava lineage. And to be able to connect to any description in any form that has been revealed about them is indeed fortunate. As I said, when we hear these glorious descriptions of great personalities, the mind becomes disinclined towards materialistic existence and very positively oriented towards developing attachment to serve Krishna, towards devotional service, attachment towards devotional service. There is a beautiful book called as Bhakti Ratnakar. It was written by a very great scholar and follower of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Narhari Chakravarti or Narhari Sarkar, wherein he describes the activities of several personalities, beginning with those who took instructions from Jiva Goswami. That means a generation starting from Jiva Goswami. Prior to the Goswamis, there is a lot of information of great personalities in epics like Chaitanya Charitamrita. Narhari Sarkar has given us this voluminous work, and we are indeed grateful to him that he has done that, wherein he describes the lives of great acharyas like Srinivas Acharya, Narottam Das Thakur, Shyamananda Pandit, other great souls like Rasikananda Acharya, Rasikananda Prabhu. So in the month of Kartik, the host of Gaudiya Vaishnavas, they remember the appearance day of Rasikananda Prabhu, who is also called as Rasikananda Acharya. He is also called as Rasika Murari. He is the disciple of the famous devotee saint Shyamananda Pandit. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Supreme Lord, when he appeared, after taking sannyas, he walked all the way to Jagannath Puri, along with a few associates. So Jagannath Puri was in a different state or a different province. It was a state of Utkal. Those are the times where different provinces were ruled by kings. So the king of Orissa was actually, there was no Odisha there. It was Utkal Desh. So the king of Utkal Desh did not have jurisdiction over Bengal. Bengal was called as Bangladesh, or it was called as Gauda Desh. So Gauda Desh and Utkal Desh were two different provinces and different kings. So obviously they had a border, and the border was defined by a river called as Suvarna Rekha. And this river has been witness to various pastimes of devotees from the Gaudiya Vaishnava lineage. We haven't really, I'm not sure if many of us have heard of this river. It's a beautiful river. It isn't that wide, but quite wide enough. Suvarna Rekha. So on the banks of the river Suvarna Rekha is or was a small town wherein the local king was blessed with a son that he named as Murari. And later on, the son was also called as Rasika Murari. And after initiation from Shamananda Pandit, this young man was called as Rasikananda. So he was born on the banks of the river Suvarna Rekha. And there are so many wonderful activities that have been described in the book Bhakti Ratnakar. However, Bhakti Ratnakar very concisely, like within a couple of chapters, describes the, maybe about 3 or 4 chapters, it describes the life and activities of Rasikananda Prabhu. More are found in the writings of the followers of Rasikananda Prabhu and the disciples and grand disciples and great grand disciples of Rasikananda Prabhu. Just as we, the followers of Srila Prabhupada, we have an entire biography written about Srila Prabhupada, and we have so many memories of Srila Prabhupada that have been compiled. So the followers of Srila Prabhupada, they are able to glorify Srila Prabhupada in greater detail. And we find references from Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's lives, our predecessor acharyas. They have mentioned about Srila Prabhupada to a certain extent. So some of the books from the Gaudiya Math would describe certain details of Srila Prabhupada, and some other books would describe that how Bhaktivinoda Thakur had predicted the appearance of a very great personality that would spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. And there is another reference from Chaitanya Bhagavat that says that a great personality would come and spread the names of Lord Chaitanya all over the world. So those are very brief descriptions in the epics that form, that are like the pillars of, they are the foundation of our Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy, these epics like Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya Bhagavat. However, the greater description of Srila Prabhupada would be found in what has been compiled by our BBT, Bhakti Vedanta Book Trust. Similarly, a greater description of Rasikananda Prabhu would be found in the writings of the followers of Rasikananda Prabhu. And from there, we'll describe a few incidents which glorify the nature and attributes of a great personality. So when Rasikananda Prabhu was in his teens, he got married to a very qualified girl. Now, the city, the town where Rasika Murari was born, his father being the local king, the local landlord, he was born in a very well-to-do family, aristocratic family. That town is present even today, and it is known as a town of, or that is just like large village town. In today's times, it is called as Rohini. At one point of time, it is called as the village of Rohini. And it is described that Lord Ramachandra had visited this place along with Mother Sita and Lakshman during his exile, during his vanvas. And some distance away, some miles away, was another village called as Ghantashila. There is this huge stone that is revered, worshipped as the place where the Pandavas stayed and they performed their worship there. Shila means a huge rock or a stone. So he got married to a girl from Ghantashila, and she was a lady of such integrity and wonderful qualities that the local people would lovingly call her Ichhadai. Ichhadai means she who fulfills everyone's desires. So she was very kind-hearted and compassionate as a young girl, and she was also in a very early teens when she got married. So in those days, people got married early. So Rasikanand was staying in his in-laws' place. He was just visiting the place, where he had this experience of intensely wanting to take shelter of a devotee of Lord Krishna and a devotee of Lord Chaitanya. And in his this deep introspection and meditation, he heard a voice, what we call as an Akashvani, a disembodied voice. He heard a voice that tomorrow you shall meet your guru, your spiritual master, Shyamananda Prabhu. So he was waiting the next day, looking, since he was at his wife's home. So he was looking towards a path that led out of the village or brought people into the village. He was looking down that path. And sure enough, somewhere around late morning, he saw the most beautiful personality approach him. This was Shyamananda Prabhu. Shyamananda Prabhu, who was a student of Jiva Goswami and a disciple of Hriday Chaitanya. Hriday Chaitanya was a disciple of Gauridas Pandit, and Gauridas Pandit was a relative of Nityananda Prabhu, and Gauridas Pandit was very much, he had great love for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So that is the genealogy. So Shyamananda Prabhu initiated him at Ghantashila, and since then, since after his initiation, where he got the name Rasikananda Das, and his wife was initiated into the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, and she received the name of Shyama Devi Dasi. So they traveled with their spiritual master Shyamananda Prabhu to various places, and he became one of the trusted lieutenants of Shyamananda Prabhu's preaching movement. At one point of time, when they were camping at a place called as Rajagar, Shyamananda Prabhu asked many of his disciples to go into the town and visit people and make them aware of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement. So his disciples went into town. Rasikananda Prabhu also went into town. Now this town was a medium-sized town. However, this town was famous for a lot of animal trade, and it was famous for a lot of animal slaughter. Um, it was like the place where people would come together from the surrounding villages and sell their animals, and there would be a lot of slaughter of animals, and there was a lot of consumption of animal flesh. So there was trade and commerce. There was money involved with animal slaughter. Therefore, a lot of business houses there, a lot of well-to-do people there had connections with uh, this animal trade and animal slaughter, including one of the leading aristocratic families, homes, one of the leading business houses of that town. So in those days, these leading business houses would be called as kings. They would be called as landlords, because generally, business in those days dealt with land or with animal husbandry and so on and so forth, trade of various products. So these aristocrats, the kings of the town of Rajagar, they welcomed uh, Rasika Anand Prabhu, Rasika Murari into their house. It was a palatial house. And the king's name was Vaidyanath. The town was actually a part of a principality of Bhanj, and he was a king of Bhanj actually. So he was not just one of the big business houses, but he was actually the king of a smaller province within the province of Orissa. So subsidiary king. So King Vaidyanath, despite his business connections and business activities, was a very he was very inclined towards religious activities and religious practices. So much so that he had regular discussions with scholars, and he was sponsoring scholars, and there would be religious discussions on religious scriptures and discourses in his house almost every day. And there were various titles offered to great scholars, like they would be called as the Bhattacharyas or the Chattopadhyayas, and those titles were offered to them. So these Bhattacharyas and the Mukhopadhyayas, they were well versed in their knowledge, in the scriptural knowledge, and they would have this like really intricate discussions, very deep discussions, challenges, debates. So when Rasik Murari enters into that space, into that sabha, into the court, the king's court, his very presence, the effulgence that he radiates, and his bodily features, his demeanor is very attractive, and everyone becomes quiet. There's this silence there, like people are mesmerized seeing him. And he walks up to the king, smiling, and he says, "My dear king, I've come here as a beggar, and I request you to please take shelter of the lotus feet of Sri Krishna, and please chant his holy names." So the king there were three siblings. There was the three brothers, and each equally powerful. Vaidyanath was the eldest, and the middle brother was Chota Rai Sen, and the youngest was called as Rautra. So the three brothers, all of them were very pious people. Somehow or the other, piety and activities like um, meat eating would go on in society, although they are contradictory to each other. Somehow, uh, that does happen in societies, in the human population. Uh, Maybe because of misinformation or lack of clarity, people do not realize that violence towards animals just for the satisfaction of the tongue is detrimental to spiritual evolution. There are various factors why this happens. So Srila Prabhupada, he was kind enough to help us understand that one should have a vegetarian lifestyle and offer food to Krishna and accept it as prasad. And one should not be involved in any kind of food habits that involve violence towards animals. So meat eating is a no-no. However, Rasika Murari here would have to face the situation. So the king, Vaidyanath, and his brothers were so eager to hear from him that they spent an entire day just kind of opening up their hearts to him in the sense of inquiring from Rasika Murari. And in a couple of hours, they were so convinced and they were so attracted by Rasika Murari that the king decided that he would take mantra initiation from Rasika Murari. He was ready to get initiated. And when the scholars heard that, they were a little concerned because they hadn't heard of this great personality as of yet, and there was some concern regarding their own situation, their own finances. What would happen to them once the king became a disciple of this great personality? There'd be some change. So there was some concern likewise, and hence, or concerns about this, and hence they approached the king and they tried to make the king aware about the lack of personal information on this person, about the lack of personal information of Rasika Murari, like who is he and what is the extent of his knowledge. So they just suggested that let us have a debate. And in that debate, first they had a debate on Sankhya philosophy, and Rasika Murari kind of helped them see that Sankhya philosophy ultimately culminates in the chanting of the holy names of the Lord, and they were impressed. And then he had a discussion on the sutras of Patanjali that describe the yoga philosophy, and they were completely, those who were great scholars in that field, they were convinced that yes, the goal of the uh, process offered by Sri Patanjali is to achieve liberation through service of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna and his devotees. So they were happy. And the Mimamsakas, these are various departments of knowledge through which debates or on which debates were conducted in the past. This is about 16 or yes, this is about 1620s AD. In the 1620s, these events were unfolding. So about 300 years ago, or 400 years ago, roughly. Rasika Murari was born around 1590. So the Mimamsakas, the followers of yoga, and the followers of Jaimini, the followers of Sankhya. It was amazing that all of these great scholars of various fields of Vedic knowledge were present there, and they were so proficient in their understanding. And all of them ultimately They accepted that Rasika Murari's presentation helped them understand better their own books, their own philosophy. So everyone was very satisfied and everyone was happy to seek shelter of Rasikananda Prabhu. And then the king, he started asking questions. And these questions that have been described they are so philosophical. The king asked that how is it that the living entity actually can be considered to be uh, seeking Krishna? How is it that we can understand that a living entity is actually seeking God, seeking Krishna always? And Rasik Murari described that when one is in the womb, even when one is just practically the size of a small pea, one has a realization that one is suffering in the womb of the mother, and especially in the 7th month of the pregnancy. This suffering is very acutely felt. And therein, the living entity prays to Krishna that, my dear Lord, I've forgotten you over so many lifetimes and you've been so kind to be always accompanying me in this journey. Now I've realized my stupidity. So in the womb, during the 7th month of pregnancy, for many souls, and this is about the human form, the human species. In the human species during the 7th month of pregnancy, many souls offer this prayer. Most probably you and I must have also offered this prayer to the Lord in the heart. Please free me from this situation, and I promise you that I shall never forget you. And when the king heard that, and the other scholars heard that, they felt so devastated by the fact that how is it, having offered such a very intense prayer of help to the Lord, how is it that the living entity forgets that one has to dedicate one's human form of life to serving Krishna 24/7? How is it that one forgets? And then Rasika Murari describes that this entire circus that we call as life from birth to death. As a young child, he describes that we are completely enamored by the attention that we receive from everyone around us. When as a young teenager, we are excited about how our senses can reveal a new world of enjoyment to us. Then in our youthful years, we are infected with this intense need. We are kind of diseased with this intense need to be able to exploit everything that is available to us. There's this intense greed that one finds in one's youthful years. And then in the middle age years, one becomes aware of the conception of my family and I, my community and I. And one becomes totally engrossed in that. And in the old age, one is so disillusioned by the suffering and pains that one goes through. But all one hopes is that I wish I could have a better body. And in this way, one gives up one's life. Futile, living in just some futile pursuit. And thus, our motivations, our trying to exploit the resources that we have, these bonds that we form in terms of family, friends, society, nation, and just the being ravished by the various problems of old age, human life just passes away. That is just lost. Human existence. Very few souls, very, very few souls, due to some good fortune. It could be their own desire, it could be their previous activities, it could be blessings, or a combination of all of that. By some good fortune, very few souls, they try to come out of this circus of human life. They try to be just an observer. They try to use their intelligence to understand that human life is an opportunity to find eternal happiness, to find eternal peace. And they take up seriously to Krishna consciousness, and they take up seriously to the chanting of the holy names of Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Everyone is so convinced that they all took a promise to dedicate their lives to chanting Hare Krishna and to serving each other and serving the deity form of the Lord based on the principles of bhakti, devotional service. Rasik Murari's glories spread far and wide. A few years later, they happened to come to a small town. And the local people there, they approached them and they said, "Oh, saintly people, oh, saintly personalities, you should be careful. For some distance away, a few villages away, in the village of Radhanagar, there is this evil king. He is more of a usurper, an invader. His name is Ahmad Beg Suba or Subedar. So he has an army, more like a mercenary army. And his only intent is, and he's a Yavana, and his only intent is to punish those who follow the Vedic path. So he is causing so many problems. So please stay away, because if he knows that you are you are saints, you are followers of the Vedic path, then he may cause trouble to you. And either it was true or there was a rumor about him that every day he would only eat after he had found 2 or 3 people guilty of being executed. So he would find ways to, he would find reasons why people are guilty of being a heretic, and he would execute them. Basically, he wasn't executing criminals, he was just executing what he felt were religious heretics. So that was his practice. So Shyamanand Prabhu felt very compassionate towards this person, and he looked at Rasikananda Prabhu. Rasikananda Prabhu understood what was his desire, and he left for the place where he would be able to meet the king, this king, Ahmed Beg. So he came to the town of Vanpuri, where he would meet up with this king. By the arrangement of Providence, that very day, the town was attacked by a mad elephant. And when the mad elephant was destroying everything and everyone in its path, no one was able to stop the elephant with their weapons or by any other means. Ahmed Beg felt that his life was in danger. So he told the people that I've heard that some Rasika Murari, who's one of your great saints, who's revered as a saint in your community, has come here. So I promise you this. If this person tames this elephant, and then he says, no, not tame. But if this person transforms the heart of this elephant, if this person can make an elephant surrender and take shelter of the holy names of the Lord, of your Lord, and this very day, I shall also surrender to your practices. I shall adopt your practices, and I shall stop all of my acts of troubling you. So when the townspeople heard of this, they had these expectation in their eyes when they were looking very piteously towards Rasika Murari. So Rasika Murari, he walks down the path where he would meet up with the elephant. The elephant sees, he's seeing so many people. Everyone else is running away from him, from the path that the elephant is coming down on. But Rasik Murari is walking towards him, and when the elephant sees the beautiful form of Rasikananda Prabhu, the elephant becomes a little pacified. Yeah, the elephant doesn't understand how and why, but becomes pacified. That is the presence of a great soul. That is the effect of the presence of a great soul. So the elephant stops, stops in its tracks, stops its madness, is not trumpeting, dangerously anymore, not making any noises, but is keenly observing Rasikananda Prabhu walk up towards him. Rasikananda Prabhu had some sacred water with him. So he takes that water and he sprinkles it onto the elephant's head and trunk. And the elephant sits down on its legs. It bends its knees and it lowers itself down on the road. And Rasikanand Prabhu walks up to the elephant and walks up to the ear of the elephant and whispers in the ear of the elephant. And after that, the elephant kind of becomes very docile and has tears in its eyes. And after that, Rasikanand Prabhu starts doing kirtan and the elephant starts dancing in the kirtan. But now its dance is a little more gentle and it's very, very lovely to watch. So as Rasikanand Prabhu was walking towards the elephant and the elephant becomes a little quiet, curiosity, some people are very curious and that curiosity takes over their need to, it takes over their fear. The curiosity is more powerful than the fear that they have. So such curious people have tiptoed close enough to hear what Rasikananda Prabhu had whispered in the ear of the elephant. Rasikananda Prabhu had whispered to the elephant that you are a servant of Krishna. From time immemorial, you have forgotten Krishna. Now you should give up your illusion and you should chant the holy names of Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And the elephant had accepted that in its heart. And after the kirtan was over, the elephant offered 100 prostrated obeisances to Rasikananda Prabhu. Rasikananda Prabhu gave the name Shri Gopal Das to this elephant. And the elephant went back to the forest. There are some folklores about this, that the elephant came back with hordes of other elephants, and all of them, they took shelter of Shri Rasikananda Prabhu. It's a folklore. However, this incident about Rasikananda Prabhu initiating an elephant, a mad elephant, into the holy names has been described. So these great personalities, by the dint of their own faith and practices, and just by the fact that they are so pure and they're so surrendered towards Krishna and towards, they have so much, they're so inclined towards always being in the mood of serving Krishna. They affect the hearts of one and all, whether it is humans or whether they are animals. Transformations happen in the presence of such great souls. And by the fact that we can faithfully hear these descriptions about the activities of great souls like Rasikananda Prabhu, is similar to taking a bath. These words are nourishing our heart, and that these descriptions are nourishing our heart, which needs faith, which needs more nourishment. And hence it is not different from having a physical abhishek of the dust of the lotus feet of such devotees. So just as Sri Prahlad Maharaj stated that only by becoming Krishna conscious and taking shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord, in this way, one can be freed from material contamination. One has to smear upon one's body the dust of the lotus feet of a Vaishnava, completely freed from material contamination. So this is also possible when we wholeheartedly hear or read and accept the descriptions of such great personalities. So I'll stop here. Yeah, it's quite late. I have another class too. Thank you very much. And if there are any comments or questions, please feel free to ask. Hare Krishna. You're welcome. I can hear you. Sorry, what happened? So it wasn't clear? My voice wasn't clear? Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay. Yes. Yes, please. Only devotional service can help us to nourish our faith. Devotional service is described in the Srimad Bhagavatam to be having 9 limbs: Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakhyam Atmanivedana. Chanting the holy names of the Lord, hearing about the Lord with rapt attention and accepting those descriptions within our hearts, remembering the Lord, offering obeisances to the Lord, reciting wonderful prayers in glorification of the Lord, worshipping the deity form of the Lord, considering oneself to be an intimate friend of the Lord and offer services for the Lord's benefit, considering oneself to be a servant of the Lord, dedicating everything for the satisfaction of the Lord. These are the various limbs of devotional service. So one can practice any one of these limbs or more than one of these limbs and nourish one's faith. Actually, that is true. No, one can definitely do devotional service at home. And the temple is also the home of the Lord, isn't it? So we have a second home too. So why stop ourselves from going to the temple? Yes, 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 Acharya Nidhi Prabhu. I'm so sorry. So the idea, I'll just conclude it. The idea that a temple is different from one's house, that kind of discrimination is ill-founded. It is improper understanding. So a temple is also a place where you can meet up with various other kinds of devotees, because everyone from their individual homes would congregate at a temple too. So it is helpful to come and exchange one's experiences and also be inspired. Plus, the temple is also the home of our Lord, so that is our second home too. I'm trying to keep it very simple. I don't want to kind of say things that seem to be mandatory. I don't want to say things that appear to be like a diktat. No diktats. So the temple is a home. I wouldn't even say, there are things said like the temple is our home is an extension of the temple. We've heard all of that. Now we have to start believing that we have a second home too, and we have to believe strongly in it. Our own place, the place where we reside, and the place where the Lord's deity form, where as a community the Lord resides, as the center uh, of the members of that community, the Lord resides. Another simple example is given is that a home is like that is a place that can quench one's thirst by, it's like a well. So whatever the thirst for spiritual practices can be quenched uh, by using the well of our house, by using the facilities of our house, which is like a well. But a well can sometimes go dry. However, the temple is more like an ocean, or it's like a river. And if we find a way to connect the water of the river to our well, that would be good. So the river rarely goes dry. The chances of a river going dry are lower than the chances of the well going dry. And if if we take the temple to be an ocean, so the ocean of mercy is available there. And it is a fact. As I said, the temple is it is the combined uh, it is the combined total of the faith that individual homes exhibit. That is what a temple is. So temple is a very powerful place. It is like this huge uh, source of energy, because people with individual faiths, they come there, and by their presence, they make it very vibrant. Whereas in individual homes, you get, the energy level could be lesser compared to the temple. So the temple is like the transformer that has 44,000 volts of energy, and the house is like a small extension of this energy, where you have like 400 volts of energy, like that. So temple is like 44,000 volts of energy, and the house is like 400 volts of energy. So the temple is our second home, and that is true, because that is where our father, our mother, our grandfather, Krishna is everything, right? Pitahamasya jagato mata dhata pitama. He lives. Our eternal mother lives. So visiting a temple is also necessary for spiritual practitioners. I'm trying to be very, very simple. There are various other factors. The temple is like a university. It is like your city hospital. It's like all those things. Analogies can be used, but let us keep it short. Okay. So I'll take leave now. If there are other questions, please send it to me, and I'll try to find a way to connect. Okay. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna. Hare Bol.